Welcome to the Afghanistan Project Podcast. I'm your host, Beth Bailey, and I'm here today with two very familiar guests, Kate Kovarovic and Shawn VanDiver, and we're talking about yet another breaking development with the executive orders that have suspended U.S. RAP processing. And I'm not even gonna, we're gonna do this again. You guys know, Shawn VanDiver is founder and president of the Afghan Evac Coalition, which is an umbrella of multiple volunteers and professionals across government and private sector who are trying their damnedest to fulfill the promises that the U.S. made to its allies. Kate Kovarovic was the former director of resilience programming of the Afghan Evac Coalition, and you guys are right smack in the middle of all of these things that are going on right now. Without further ado, Shawn and Kate, take it away. Tell everybody what has now happened that is calling for further advocacy before disaster strikes.
Sure. So, Kate, are you good with me giving the overview?
Yeah, take it away.
Perfect. All right. So, when last we spoke, we were left at two executive orders having paused the all refugee processing, like all refugees, P1, P2, P3, P4, which is Welcome Corps, and DS 4317. None of that is happening because the U.S. Rep EO 14163, the foreign aid executive order, EO 14169, put a stop to all foreign aid, put a stop to the reception and placement here in the United States, so there's nobody to catch, to meet folks at the airport. There's nobody to distribute flight loans. There's nobody to provide all of the services that were happening on platforms, so there's no flights coming out of Afghanistan to third country platforms. Now, and the idea was that both were a 90-day pause. We expected to one, either hear about an exemption that Secretaries Noem and Rubio could issue for refugees, or Secretary Rubio could just do for SIVs. And, we were sort of waiting, and it was starting to get a little bit, a long time of quiet, wondering why this seemingly very easy thing wasn't happening. And then today, a story broke in Reuters that said that that State Department staff had been directed to put together plans for essentially breaking down enduring welcome. Put together plans for clearing out the platforms by April of 2025, and those plans are due to the Secretary this week. Notably, the White House hasn't been asking for anything officially, but we understand that that this, in fact, is not unintended. This is not an accident, and I'm hearing from Republicans on the Hill that they're devastated, that it feels like the administration is trying to close this chapter in our history, even as their buddies are stuck over there, right? And what's the worst thing about this is that for the first time in U.S. history, we're keeping our promise to our wartime allies. We fucked the Montagnards in Vietnam, we fucked the Kurds in Iraq, and initially when we left Afghanistan, we left a bunch of people behind, but almost immediately we started moving people. And that was the first time this had ever happened, right? And we were moving 5,000 a month through secure, safe, legal immigration, through both SIV and US RAP, but consular track and a refugee track. And it was safe, they were vetted, they were being welcomed here. 90% of the American public supports this. So this story broke today, and it said that they're planning on it. But what's important is that the decision has not been made yet. What's important is that Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Noem, Secretary Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who's a veteran of Afghanistan himself, they all have the power in the next Principals Committee meeting, when this is on the agenda, to double down on our national commitment to this, to make it smarter, faster, and better. And, we've heard that there's concerns about vetting. We know that's bullshit, obviously, because of all we've created a bunch of graphics. We know that this is the most vetted population that exists. The other thing that we're hearing, which really irks me, is about money. Oh, we're worried this costs too much money. Nobody was worried about how much money it cost when they were sending us downrange. They cashed those checks, they wrote those checks in 2001 and 2003 when they sent us into our longest wars in our history.
I mean, also, can we just acknowledge, though, that an immense amount of the financial backing for this stuff comes from the volunteers and not from the government anyway. Yeah. So if that is one of the primary arguments that they're making, it holds no water.
Yeah. And look, it was at its height about $2 billion a year on this. The war in Afghanistan cost $2.23 trillion. What's a couple billion among friends? That's budget on the DoD budget, and they have to finish this through. They have to see this through, because on the other end of this is an extraordinary moral injury for veterans, for our service members, for our former diplomats, our frontline civilians, and the grievous national security harm that's happening when we send our kids off to war. The next time we go into conflict, how is anybody supposed to believe us? How is anybody supposed to believe us when we say, hey, you stand with me, I'll stand with you. We'll bring you, we'll make you an American. You can add value to our communities. And in fact, we know that it's at least $2 back into our economy for every dollar that we spend on refugees. And when they did a study over time, it was like $150 billion benefit. It was insane, the amount of benefit for refugee resettlement. So look, what we need people to do is make sure that you're making it very clear to your elected representatives at the federal, state, and local level that this won't stand. We have to keep our promises to these allies. We need you to make your voice heard.
Whew.
And with that,
yeah, when I saw this, it was like, I just felt like it was already over, you know? And tell me if that's the way we should be taking it, or
absolutely
should we
not
be bravehearting our way?
I disagree with Shawn.
Okay, go ahead, Kate.
You go first, and then I'll hit you with the counter.
You can't do that. You can't do that, right? They still have to make the final decision, and this is what advocacy is about. This is what we did the first time. The last administration was ready to wipe their hands, and Afghan evac, and the Moral Compass Federation, and No One Left Behind, and all these organizations said, fuck no, you can't do that. Task Force Pineapple, all these groups stood up and said, hell no. And we were united, and they couldn't get away from us. They had to do what we asked. That's why we have multiple platforms in multiple countries. That's why we were getting 5,000 Afghans out a month. That's why P1s and P2s were eligible for relocation instead of just being told, go fuck yourself, get yourself out of Afghanistan. We did that. We made this. We made this, and it's the first time in our history that our wartime allies are being taken care of, and it's because of us. So if you're sitting on your ass and you're not fucking talking about this, I have questions about your honor, courage, and commitment.
Shawn seems heated.
I'm
fucking mad.
I'm a little, I feel a little bad here. I'm like...
You know what the difference is, though, is that Shawn had the experience over the last 3 years of being in the room, right? So he has the life experience of knowing that he can partner with government and find a way to support our Afghan allies, right? So that's the experience that he's coming from. And he is also the lead of one of the premier coalitions in this space, right? Like, if you care about Afghans, you should be listening to Shawn VanDiver. And please know that it hurts me to say that, but he is, right? And so we want people to be paying attention to him. And that means that he has to be saying things that don't harm people, but that make them feel encouraged to keep going, right? I, on the other hand, have a professional obligation to read things in as faithful a capacity I can and to offer my guidance on that. And so I think that what we're missing here in this conversation, yeah, drink up, buddy, drink up for this, is so much of what we are arguing relies on ethics. And that is not what this administration wants to look into, right? Like, we were even talking in one of our episodes recently, and Shawn was saying, I think that this was an accident. I don't think that they meant to do this. And I disagreed at the time, because what we are seeing is a very concerted, coordinated, fast-moving effort to remove what they consider to be waste. And unfortunately, the consistent message that we're getting is that immigrants and refugees constitute waste. And so we're here and we're calling on people to organize and to advocate, but it has to look really different this time than it has over the last 3.5 years. And I think that's the piece I want people to know, is that this isn't a moment to lose your voice and stop your advocacy, but it does have to look different, because we're dealing with a completely different administration this time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to start singing The Room Where It Happens. Honestly, that's like the level of mentally present that I feel like I am at the moment, because it's so hard to watch this, right? As an outsider, like, you don't get to be in the room where it happens anymore, Shawn, and no one seems to be in the room.
Well,
Which
I'll
that
tell
seems
you,
intentional. I would just like to say
it
that,
does
like,
seem
when
intentional.
when Afghan evac came out the gate, there were a lot of people who didn't like the way that they did business, and I understand that. Like, everybody has a different approach, but at least they argued for it. At least they advocated, and at least they put themselves in the room so that they could have these conversations and hear what was being said. There are other coalitions that popped up 3 or 4 years ago because they didn't like the way that Afghan evac was doing things. And so they wanted to coordinate with a different population, specifically the Republicans. And now they have an opportunity to put themselves in the room, and they are not asking. They don't want to be there because they're not willing to risk whatever it is, the political clout, their name, whatever, the authority, their jobs. But this is the time that you need to be doing that. So if you had a problem with how Afghan evac was operating and partnering with the last administration, here's your opportunity. But what I'm seeing is absolute silence. So I'm seeing a bunch of people who put themselves up on a pedestal, and then in the moment when we needed to call them down from it, they will not. And I think that that is an absolute moral failing.
So what I can't speak to what they're doing or not doing, what other groups are doing or not doing. What I can say is that Afghan evac is fully willing to partner with anybody who's willing to help Afghans. Mm-hmm. We're fully willing to, like, if you want to come yell at me for half an hour, if that'll make you feel good, and then we can get to the business of helping Afghans, I'm down for that. We'll brief you up. We'll make sure you know everything you need to know. There's just, because of the position that we occupied before, there's nobody that knows this better than the group of people that are in Afghan evac. We've been in the room where it happens. And look, there are still people that are in the rooms where it happened that are calling me. There are people at the State Department, at DHS, at the White House. I'm still getting those phone calls, but people are terrified. And people are they feel helpless. They feel like, what can we do? We can't change this. And look, that's a real problem, right? When this feels, so one, it's not a done deal, but it is a done deal if we don't speak up. And Kate makes a point about folks not leveraging their access. Look, you know, your viewers don't know me from before very well, but I've been involved in politics since 2013 when I got out of the Navy. And I've been involved in national security politics for Dems. I'm a former emergency manager. I like to grassroots organize, and I worked on the Hillary Clinton campaign, and I worked on the Joe Biden campaign, running veterans and military families issues. The reason that I stood up during August of 2021 and took the mantle of leading Afghan evac is because I knew that the administration wouldn't talk to people that they didn't trust. And I knew that I would be in a position to garner that trust, and I knew what I was putting at risk by stepping into that role. So I know it's scary. I've done it. I know that speaking truth to power is hard. I've done it.
And suffered for it, I want to be clear. Like, to all the people who criticize Shawn, like, he has lost an immense amount because of the work that he has been doing. And now we are looking to other people to ask them to do the same, and we're just hearing crickets. And I think that's what's been disappointing, is that this is a time when we really need to come together in that sense of community, and I'm just not getting that impression from people.
Yeah, and look, people may be having private conversations. We want, like, if you call me and have a conversation with me, I will brief you up on where things are at. If you help us understand how we can be useful in the ecosystem, we'll do that. And you can take, I'm not going to tell you who, but powerful leaders in this administration have called me to tell me how to be useful. And we've done that. So if you're wondering what to do next and you have access to the administration, call me. We'll help. And look, it's all water under the bridge. I don't care if you were talking shit about me behind closed doors and I was hearing about it, because I was. But it doesn't matter. Like, my feelings don't really get hurt, right? I've got thick skin with Navy for a long time. Yeah, Kate's tried. But look, we owe it to our wartime allies. We owe it to our fellow veterans. We owe it to our country. We owe it to history, because we're the people that can get it done. So the global war on terrorism generation, my generation of veterans, our generation that fought our longest wars and have suffered extraordinarily, we have the power to make this different. We have the power to raise our voices. We're safe. They can't really fuck with us that much, although I'm sure that will not necessarily be true always. But look, it's worth it. It's worth stepping up. It's worth making your voice heard. And if you want to talk to me about ways to do that, I'm here to help. I'm really good at being annoying. And look, what we need to do is leave the door open for this administration to do the right thing, right? Like, we're not going to do personal attacks. I'm not making any personal attacks on this administration. Neither should you. I don't care what party you're from. Personal attacks aren't going to help. But what you can do is explain the policy. What you can do is explain the impact. That's what we did with the Biden administration. That's how successful advocacy looks. And look, you need to be able to sleep at night. And it's going to be really hard to sleep at night if you, trust me, when I was in the seat, when I was interacting with my longtime friends who were senior leaders in the Biden administration, and I was finger in their face yelling at them, telling them, hey, you're fucking this up, you need to fix this. When I was staring down the barrel of that, I knew that I had to do it because I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I didn't. If I had the access and if I had the opportunity, I had to go as hard as I could without breaking things so that our wartime allies could have their best shot at getting their shot at the American dream.
I just want to pause because I think that Shawn did a really good job of jumping in on this episode and calling for advocacy, which is really what we're asking for people, right? But I think that it also matters that we put a human face on what is happening, right? So Shawn had actually come out earlier today with a really good explainer of what it means for them to be shutting down some of these offices. So there is no more relocation for our Afghan allies, no more flights for those who have already been vetted unless they can pay for it themselves, which is a different thing. But no plan right now for any of the thousands of people who are stranded abroad. And when I say 1,000, I think, Shawn, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said that there were 200,000 Afghans in Afghanistan who are already awaiting, and 50 or 40,000 who are in third-party countries who have been vetted.
Let me walk you through the numbers because the numbers really matter.
They matter, right? Yeah.
So let's start overarching. There are 200,000 Afghans in Afghanistan who have been identified as part of the Enduring Welcome Pipeline. Right. About 40,000 of those folks have been vetted and they're ready to travel, right? They're interview ready with the manifesting team. They're just getting their ducks in a row. They could travel to a third country, do their visa interview, and go on. They have COM approval, that 40,000 or so in Afghanistan. And that's principal applicants and their family members. Now, in Pakistan, there are roughly 23,000 or so people.
That seems right.
There are 23,000 refugees around the world, but there's 15,000 refugees in Pakistan who are ready to travel now. There's about 20,000 Afghans in Pakistan in our pipeline. All around the world, there's about 50,000 Afghans, SIV, IV refugee. 23,000 are refugees. About half of the global refugees, SIVs, IVs are in Pakistan. So, and then of all of those numbers, there are 3,000 active duty family members of active duty U.S. military. There's about 10,000 families that need to be reunified, with about 3,000 of them being family members of unaccompanied children who are here in the United States.
And that's a really big number, you guys. Like that, all of those numbers matter. Every single person, every single data point is important. But reunification is something that I think doesn't get talked about as much as it needs to. And as somebody who is familiar with like what the immigration world can look like, if you are an unaccompanied minor who is separated from your family, it is one of the most traumatic and terrifying things that I can possibly express, because it's not just kids who are like 17 and 16 and like might have some capacity to understand how to function independently. We're talking children who are like age 4, 5, 6.
Do you remember? Right. It's like, remember watching the babies being tossed over the sea wire because the families knew what would meet them.
And so they are completely alone. They are not often granted access to an advocate. They are not legally obligated to provide an attorney for these children when they go into court hearings that will determine what is going to happen with their future and if they will be reunited with their families. We actually don't even have a good sense of whether or not they are tracking those families to begin with. So if you go online and you're in the mood to be sad, look at what the immigration process is like for unaccompanied minors. Because what they do in these ICE facilities is they set up one big room where like children ages 0 to 4 are, and then 4 to 8, and then 8 to 12. And they put everybody in one room. Nobody speaks the same language. You're not allowed an opportunity to ask questions. You're not given medical care. You're not given like meaningful access to food even sometimes.
But
like,
that's not the case right now for Afghans, though, to be clear.
No, but like this is what we are headed towards. And so like,
Yes.
you know, Shawn's job again is to be a little bit more positive, and my job is to look at things I think and to say like, this is what we're headed towards. We already have thousands of people who are in that situation. And I do believe that Afghans are next, because originally it was really easy for us to say we think that this is an unintended consequence. And I do not think that we can say that anymore. So aside from all of that, we have all of these Afghans who are coming to us and saying, well, what now? What do we do now? And the answer is really like, we don't know. Because while we're hearing that certain programs have been halted and certain programs are going to be closed, the actual staffers haven't been told like what's going to happen with their jobs. Are these going to be things that are going to persist? Like, are we going to continue processing immigration paperwork that people, you know, submit? Are we going to be allowing the people who have approval to actually come to the United States? We don't have that answer. And my estimation is that we're not going to be given that answer because it makes it really easy to disregard the problem, right? Like, oh, this is something we're not even going to deal with. So I think that's what's so scary right now for the advocates, is that we don't have an answer and we don't know if a meaningful one is coming.
And how do you answer an Afghan who's asking? Yeah. I mean, it's like, how do you even try to keep their hopes up after 3.5 years?
So I don't try to keep anybody's hopes up, right? What I try to do is give people real information and tell them when we don't know something, and tell them when they're going to get another update. Watch our social media. Like, I can't do one-to-one updates on your case because I don't know. But what I can do is put out information, push out information, and make sure that everything that we know, you know. Which has always been to be clear, that has always been our policy. If something is knowable, we push it out. That's why we do our regular roundups with State Department and with the advocates. I do want to point out that for the parents out there, for parents who are listening, you know, I've had Daphne. Daphne is turning 5 in May. She was born May 26, 2020, about a year and some change before this all happened. So she was little when this happened. I cannot imagine for the parents. And look, I participate in a lot of family reunifications. I help a lot of these folks that I don't talk about it. But all I can ever think about is the weight of Daphne on me, especially after I've had a hard day and her just clinging to me. These parents have not gotten that. These kids have not gotten to squeeze their moms and dads. My friend Florence was 15 when she left Afghanistan. She's 18 now. Her whole family isn't going to come here because they're refugees. Her whole family is stuck in Afghanistan while she's here, going to school. She has no family except for me and one of my colleagues. And both of our families have adopted her. And, like, she's lucky, right? She's with me, who has the most information outside of government. And sometimes I have more than government, right? And, like, at Afghan Evac, we focus on reducing uncertainty, maintaining urgency, and increasing throughput. And that reducing uncertainty was a lot easier when government would talk to us. And right now, there's just so much chaos that's been injected. Of course, Afghans are freaked out. That's why we are talking directly to them. Of course, advocates are worried, right? Like, the reason why we did an immediate briefing after this came out, why we're doing a press briefing tomorrow, why we're doing a briefing with Afghans tomorrow, is that the State Department's not communicating with these folks. And there's a real danger of bad information getting out there. So we're trying to flood the zone with good information. Here's what we know, here's what we don't. Here's what's real, here's what's not. But look, I'm getting messages even right now from people all across the State Department who are saying, hey, I'm hearing that this is stopping. I'm hearing that they're being told to wind down from internal sources.
There's so much panic, and I think like that is intentional. I really do think that. And I think one of the questions that I've gotten a lot today is, what are we supposed to tell our Afghans? And the question is so fair. And it's also so painful because to look at Afghans who have waited and relied on us for 3.5, 4 years, plus all of the time that they were actually like serving, if they were, like military allies, how do you say to them that we don't have the answer because no one has provided it yet? Like, we don't know what's going to happen with these care sites. We don't know what's going to happen if they're going to reopen certain pipelines. Like, so we have to go to these families that are relying on us for information and openly admit that right now we don't have much. And I think that when we talk about what the volunteer experience is, and in a call before, Shawn was saying, like, this has become even more of a veterans issue than ever before because we've put the volunteers in this untenable position where we're saying, we asked you to do the work and we told you to be patient and wait, and you did that. And now we actually don't know what the future holds, but it's looking a lot more negative than it was even just 5 weeks ago. And I think that that's really important for people to hear. It's not just the numbers and it's not just the stories, but it's like the humanity of it has really been impacted. And I have a quote, Beth, at some point, if I can read it, from a veteran who has been involved in this effort for the entire time. And it's long, but it's very honest. And so if I may, I would love to read that.
That sounds great.
And I will say to everyone, this is going to be a hard one, and I'm sorry. But I do think that this statement is so important because to me, it reflects what all of the volunteers are feeling, especially the veterans. So I had told my colleague that I was coming on this podcast and said, hey, do you want to write a statement? And originally they said no, they weren't comfortable. And then this is what they sent. Right now, they are dealing with a lot of other things with the administration. And then they said, add the fact that now my partners who fought to protect me and my advisors are going to be forced back into Taliban land while corrupt Afghan generals are chilling. My guys have all been told what awaits them and their wives, daughters, and sons when they are found. I've spent 4 winters convincing myself that wouldn't happen because we're America and our integrity sets us apart. After 20 years of service reinforcing this, I've watched it get shattered, possibly beyond repair. I realize that if we ever try to be the beacon of what we were created for, future generations will have to pay the price my friends paid over the last 20 plus years of fighting terrorism. So tonight, I'll try to sleep. Maybe I'll be lucky enough that I'll be so numb that I can't think of anything. What's more likely is that the images and sounds of 20 plus years of gruesome videos of terror organizations killing others, video feeds of my own friends being killed, and the videos I got to see of an advocate will all flood in. But what do I do then? There's no one at the Veterans Crisis Line. Many were fired. And who's to say that my crisis is worthy of more triage and care than another? I'm reminded of the message I sent to congressmen and senators when the pause was first announced, and we'll leave it at this. But I am forced to ask again, Sergeant, what do we do now? I am scared. I had nothing to say. I still have nothing. All I could say is that I honestly don't know, and if they pray, now is the time to do it. Hope can motivate. Hope can give you strength when you think you've run out. Hope can keep you moving when everything around you tells you to stop. But what happens when you abruptly pull that hope away? What happens when you lose that hope and you're left standing in the darkness, cold and alone, with only your thoughts to keep you company? I guess now we're forced to find out. Looking back, I wish they would have let me die. Now I'll have to live with the guilt of my Iraqi and Afghan partners being brutally killed because I couldn't save them.
There are so many things about that I want to immediately respond to. And the first is, I think it sucks so incredibly badly to watch this all getting ready to be played out again. We all know what's happening in Afghanistan right now. The UN just said, again, how close Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are. That's how this happened. We've got, an Afghan civilian activist just got stabbed by 2 unidentified Afghan nationals in London. He's living in London and he was stabbed. We have every fucking week I see more dead Afghans. Every fucking week, because the Taliban are continuing to kill them. And I am so sick of seeing dead Afghans. I can't even tell you, when there are so many veterans who have been pouring their souls into keeping the people who fought beside them, the people who interpreted for them, alive. And it is galling to me as a conservative to see conservatives freaking hands clean. Everything's great. It's not great. This is disgusting, and it's all going to happen again. And then my kids are going to be in that shit. And what do I say? This is the kind of thing that just makes me so heated. It is too much for any human to have to bear who's been in it. And you know what sucks the worst is all the people who don't even know. Because for 20 years, they didn't have to do shit. They got to sit there and go, oh, Afghanistan, what's happening? Haha, and not be touched by it. This podcast exists because of one of those people who doesn't understand the depth that, the depth to which this country has touched so many incredible people. So yeah, my heart breaks for that person and for so many others like them that I've talked to who have just had to take on way too much weight from the government, and now to have the government just say, oh yeah, we're 90 days, no big deal. It's a huge deal. It's a huge, disgusting deal. And then you have people trying to make hay out of the fact that, there have been 2 terror attacks conducted by Afghans, I believe, in the last month in Europe. And then it's used as, well, Afghans do this. Well, no. Yeah. No, they don't. That's not true. And you're cherry picking things that...
Assholes do that.
Right. And it happens here, too. And how dare you... the trauma, the complications, the fact that in one of those countries, at least, I have talked to advocates since day one of my involvement post-withdrawal about how poorly Afghans are treated in that country and how separate they are from the population. We all have a lot to work on here. So much has been done to try to make things better. And there's so much work to do. And what happens if it all stops now? What happens to those families who are split apart? What are they supposed to just go back to Afghanistan to, I'm irate.
You should be. I think one of the other things that is so challenging is when people raise the argument of national security. And Shawn, I think, has done a really good job in Afghan evac at talking about how much vetting that there is in these various pipelines. They go through more vetting than almost any other group or any other group that I actually am aware of. So the odds of somebody being brought into the United States that is unsafe to join our community is really, really small. But let's also consider what the national security implications are of our conduct to Afghans right now. Because I can think of nothing that would radicalize me faster than watching my sister get raped because we were supposed to have a visa to get to the United States and we couldn't because that program was closed down. If we're thinking about the safety of our borders and the safety of our people, we don't want to be throwing people away because we don't see their value as humans. That's a very quick way to ensure that we just repeat everything we've been through in the last 20 years. And I don't think that people are able to understand it from that perspective. They say, do I want this person in the house next door? I promise that you want them in that house far more than you want them to stay behind in Taliban country to suffer and to know that we could have intervened and we didn't. That's the national security risk here, from my perspective.
Or them joining the Taliban. Think about that too. Right. I mean, we've got so many people who I've heard, and if you're left with the choice, do I die or do I join the Taliban and get a salary and use the training I have? What choice are you going to make? And that hasn't just been made with the Taliban. It's been made with other countries too. We've left people with no choice. We've created so many terrible situations in the last 3.5 years, and none of them are the Afghans' fault. But we keep trying to blame it on the Afghans. Oh, the Afghans didn't try hard enough. Without the contractor support in the Afghan Air Force and without Bagram. We just left them in the middle of the night at Bagram and we're like, peace, guys. Yeah. Keep fighting. Would you? I certainly would not. No more contractor support. No more anything. Yeah, we'll just... Anyway.
I think that we've done a really good job at explaining to people why this matters and sort of what's happening. What I would love to give Shawn a chance to do, because I do cut him off sometimes by accident, it's passion. But I would love to hear what he hopes the next steps are, what those plans are, because I think that Afghans deserve to hear that there are still faithful advocates out there.
Yeah. Well, look, so the steps are pretty simple, right? We need to activate. Politics is about addition, not subtraction, right? We need to be adding supporters to this. We need to be adding voices to it. So everybody who's listening can go to afghanevac.org/elected-officials, and you can look up your representative at your state and local level specifically. If you go to afghanevac.org/EO-crisis and scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see that there's a draft resolution. So what we're trying to push out right now is state opportunities for state and local governments to do a resolution that says we need to keep enduring welcome going. The other thing you can do is you can CC your federal representatives on that. You can call your federal representatives and say you're doing this. Who else should you be talking to? You need them to know that you care about this. And you can post. Just elevate what we are saying. Share your own stories. Make this personal, right? And look, for me, I can't sleep at night if I feel like I left anything on the field. Or if I feel like I didn't leave it all on the field, right? So we're doing that. We're taking every opportunity, every news hit we can. I'll be on Afghanistan International and AMU and all of the Afghan news channels talking about this. But I'm doing everything I can to get the word out about this and to raise awareness. And that's the thing, is we have to make our fellow Americans care, right? Veterans have an obligation here. We have the burden of being a community that the president trusts and cares about, or that he says he cares about. We'll see. And look, it's enough to just do one thing every couple days. Make your voice heard. Do one post. Share it. Get the word out there. It's the least we could do, right? That's exactly what Abdul would do, and that's exactly what Ramat would do, and that's exactly what Samad would do, and that's exactly what Farhat would do, right? Our Afghan allies would do that for us. We got to do it for them. So keep your head up. It's really hard, and it's okay to feel bad about this, to feel like it's crumbling down around you. You spent 3.5 years, almost 4 years, building out this ecosystem, trusting me and others that said, hey, government's doing this with us. I thought we would go from being Joe Biden's side chicks to at least President Trump doing faster and more and better because he wanted to do it better than Joe Biden. I didn't realize that we had it the best we were ever going to have it.
Side chick status was golden, my friend.
Well, what I mean by that,
we were the good girls
I want to
before.
explain what I mean by that. I'm going to explain what I mean by that, right? Because they took a lot from us. They took a lot of input. We made every product that they had better. We made their messaging better. We helped them deliver on our promises to our wartime allies better. But Joe Biden would never talk about it. But they would never recognize the incredible volunteers all across this nation on what they did. And every time they did, every time I was able to force them to do like an event or something, it was always really restricted. And it was always like, well, we can't talk about it, or we can't do this, or we can't do that. I tried, just so everybody knows, I tried to get a letter from the president for every single advocate that I knew of in this entire ecosystem. I tried to get letters from everybody, for everybody who was standing up to do this, because what you've done fucking matters. And now, we can't even get them to pick up the phone. So, the only way we get them back to that is through collective action. The only way we get them back to that is unifying and making sure they know that enduring welcome needs to continue as good or better than it was. That is the only way. And that's on every single person listening to this podcast. That's on every single person who cares about this. That's on every single person who's got somebody in their phone asking for help.
I do also... Sorry, Shawn. Go ahead.
I would say you can share our resources page. There's something valuable there for everybody. You can do something to move the ball forward. What we can't do is let this die like a limp whatever.
I think a really important thing to do, and I talked about this with an advocate recently, but like, I think on the East Coast, it's pretty well saturated, right? Everybody knows. And I think there are places, in the middle of the country that care. I know I had one veteran come on and talk about being in like a middle of nowhere place, and there was a guy with an Afghan flag. And it just reminded him like this issue really has saturated the country in ways, but, you know, talking to people just wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
Like, just having conversations wherever you are. And, like, there are so many, all of the misinformation that has started coming out in the comments on this podcast, I've never had it before. But it clearly shows that people are getting their information now, and it's just FUBAR, right? And, like, just talk about it.
That's part of the point, though, right? Is that these people are coming on and saying there's chaos, and that's going to get us what we want, so let's continue. So I think that, you know, to whoever is listening, if you're an Afghan, one, know that there is so much strategic pivoting that is going on behind the scenes, because in the worst case scenario, we never get invited back into the room, right? But we're hearing where advocates are already starting to think about, well, what can we do instead? What are the other countries that we can look at? Can we use frequent flyer miles? I know that Afghan EVAC is putting together a plan potentially for some micro grants, I think.
We're trying.
Yeah, we're trying, and we do need people to contribute to that if you guys hear it. But I do see where this volunteer community is still really activated and still really on your side. And so the lack of response that we are giving you isn't because we don't want to make you feel confused or lost. It's because we don't have reliable information yet. And that's one of our primary concerns. And the other thing I do want to say to the people who worked at CARE, they pulled a lot of our advocates to work in that office because they were such experts in this realm, and we were very grateful to have them there. And to be dismissed in this way from something that you have worked so hard on and care so deeply about hurts me on your behalf. And please know that every single person in this volunteer community who has relied on CARE at some point, which is everyone, is immensely grateful for what you did. So even if it doesn't feel that way right now because you have been summarily dismissed from something that is so critically important just to who you are, not as a profession, but just to your heart, like, please know that your work was so important and it helped so many Afghans get here. And to the other volunteers who are tired, I see you. This is a renewed moral injury. This is a whole new thing that you guys are facing. And I heard something really great on, I think, Instagram recently, and I can't even remember what the comparison was, but it was when you get a community of people together, the point is not to have everybody acting at maximum capacity all the time, because that's how things like burnout happen. What happens is you cycle, and you have teams of people who do one thing and then they rest, and teams of other people who do other things. And so be thoughtful about what you have to offer and what your purpose is, and there will be a spot for you to fill. But we need people in this effort to also take care of themselves. And so I hear the crisis, I see the crisis, but please know that as a community, we are so much stronger when we work together. And I think that that's what I hope people can hear, because this is not a time where I think people are really feeling unity. But what I see in my community when I look at, my Signal chats, and when I look at Shawn and Beth, who are going out of their way to serve Afghans years and years later, is hope. That's what I choose to see.
You don't believe it's over yet. We're going to make this fucking happen.
Right. That's the thing.
Guys, I got nothing but time.
Think of how many people in this, I can see where there can just be so much dismay. How many people do you know who lost a marriage because of this effort, lost a job because of this effort, lost tens of thousands of dollars to this effort, health, so much, right? So many people. And it can be really hard right now to look at those things and go, what the, why did I let that happen? Did I make, an error? But what I also know is what you said too, Kate, which is that there will be other ways. Like, there will be other things that will be found. Even if the way won't exist anymore, there will be other ways found. And
if we can't find a way, we'll make a way.
Right.
Look, folks, that's what we did in August of 2021.
Yep.
This effort to help people that are, to help our Afghan allies get here in whatever way we can, we're just going to do it again.
Yeah.
And look, the unfortunate truth is that if they want to shut this down, they're going to be able to shut it down permanently. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to prevent that from happening. We need to make sure we're holding our elected officials accountable. If you have a member of Congress's phone number, ask them what the fuck they're doing. Say, what are you doing today to fix this? Look,
But say it in a better way, please.
No, say that.
Yeah, you're not gonna win many.
Shawn VanDiver, winner of hearts and minds, y'all.
I mean, they all still talk to me. I talk to them like that all the time.
I want people to leave this message knowing that we see you and that you have people who are going to hold the line until you can get back in the game. So take your time to grieve, because that's what is required here, and then we can move forward.
I have questions from Afghans. So whenever is a good time, I would like to ask some questions from Afghans.
I just want to make sure that I don't gloss over what Kate was saying about seeing people and them needing time off. Like, I want you to hear from me. It is okay to take a weekend. It's okay to take a knee. Whatever much time you need, take it. Don't feel the burden of the world on you. There's a lot of people involved in this. Nobody's going to fault you for taking a sec. And you're fucking mad. We know you're mad. You're sad. And look, this whole community is here to lift each other up. And if you need a sec, that's not weakness. That's strength. Take a sec, come back better. And we need you in this fight long term, so take as much time as you need. Let us know when you're back, and we'll put you back in there. And it's okay to take a sec. It's okay. In fact, everybody here should have a therapist. I've been telling Kate for years that everybody should have a therapist.
It's because he wants me to stop calling him and asking about his secrets, but I won't. But Shawn made a good point, and I will say to people, I took a year off. I took a year off because I went way too far, and I got to a point where I couldn't even draft like a kind message. I texted Shawn from the airport, and I was like, I am fucking out. And then I was done for a year. And I felt super guilty about needing to take that time off. But the thing is that now that there is a renewed fight to have, like, I have the energy for it. So put your oxygen mask on first, y'all, because it's okay to take a break. I am better for it, and I promise that no one judged me when I took that time off.
That's right. We didn't give you any shit, and we never would. Anybody that needs to take a break, by all means. And if somebody's telling you, hey, maybe you should take a break, that's a good indication that you should maybe take a break. People care about you. People love you.
Yeah.
We're not like... Kate can attest to this. We've had like dramatic times in Afghan evac, and it's been so rare that we've thrown anybody out, because this shit sucks. It's fucking hard, and it's hard on any human. And when you feel powerless and helpless, and like you're fighting your government, that's when you really lose. Challenging. So anyway, let's get to questions from Afghans. But I didn't want to let that pass without people hearing directly from me.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so the first question is one from an SIV applicant I've been in touch with for a while. He is at the pre-interview phase, and he wonders how that works now. How does he do an interview now with all of these things changing?
So before Enduring Welcome existed, before the withdrawal from Kabul, Afghans would have to do all of their pre-com stuff in Afghanistan. They could go and wait in places like Dubai or other places. And they would just they had to do it all on their own, right? So what this gentleman might need to do is sort of fund his own travel somewhere. While he waits for his interview, he can choose to go back and forth. I don't know. People's safety is up to them. And it's a long waiting game, right? And there's no way to predict how much time it's going to take, because we just don't know what it's going to look like. But right now, we're in a moment where everything's sort of on that applicant, including once he gets his visa, he'll need to be able to fund his own travel and make sure he can afford to live for a month or two without a job. He's got to find a job. He's got to find all of those things, take care of his family, get his family enrolled in school. And there's efforts to sort of undergird that bootstrap effort with some support. But they haven't come to fruition yet, and hopefully we'll have more to announce soon.
Can I just to clarify for my brain, before this, would that individual have been able to be relocated to, say, Pakistan and put up in... Would they have had to pay their own way in Pakistan until their interview and all of that? Okay.
Oh,
yeah, unless they had, an organization who was helping them with those funds. So this isn't that much different. The only thing is now that they have to find a visa to a country that will accept them.
And look, the reason why Enduring Welcome funded flights, funded all of this, is because we left. There was no safety for them, right? They were in real danger. So Enduring Welcome said, hey, we left, we pulled the rug out from under you. We're trying to make sure that you have what you need to succeed to get here, because we made promises and we told them that they would have their shot at the American dream. I mean, like in 20 years when people look at enduring welcome and what it meant, it's going to be extraordinary. I mean, what we've done for 195,000 Afghans has been extraordinary, and we need to keep it going. President Trump could be a hero to veterans. We could get this thing done during his term. It would be just done. And then he'll be the guy that negotiated the agreement to get out of Afghanistan and the guy that got all of our wartime allies out. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to be a hero, man, that's how you do it.
Yeah. Okay. Can we know regarding the refugee cases P1 and P2, especially for case holders in Afghanistan, because we can't go to a third country due to financial problems? So what will be our fate? Is there a possibility to resume relocation for them?
So I'll start out by saying, yes, there's a possibility, but we're waiting on President Trump, Secretary Noem from DHS, and Secretary Rubio from the State Department to decide whether or not they want to continue U.S. RAP processing. And if they decide not to, we don't know if the next administration will be able to pick it up. We don't know what happens there, right? So it's fully up to them whether or not they want to bring Afghans in, to bring our allies in. We just don't know, and I don't want to speculate. I don't want to put intent or ascribe any sort of, I can't read a crystal ball. I don't know what their thinking is. But what we can hope is that they decide to resume it after 90 days and say, hey, all of these people that have been referred in because they stood with us, we have a labor shortage. Come on in. We need somebody to, never mind. We have a labor shortage. We need help. And safe legal immigration is the right way to do it. And that's what this represents. And we know that folks that are in the enduring welcome pipeline, whether they're in the refugee or consular tracks, have already demonstrated a propensity towards American values.
Okay, this is specifically about the IRAP case, I think. Will the judge's decision allow IOM to resume flights of P2 applicants, which were scheduled by the Biden government?
So, the temporary restraining order was not the IRAP lawsuit. The temporary restraining order was one about AIDS vaccines. But it applied to all foreign aid. So what should happen is that, in fact, I think I actually just got a text message about this. Let me see. Oh, no. What should happen is that all the things funded by foreign aid should be unpaused until they decide what they're going to do there. The judge said that it's not legal to just blanket pause it. It seems like they're not choosing to comply with that. I've heard lawyers describe what we're in right now as a constitutional crisis because the courts don't have the teeth that they should. I don't know about all that. What I know is that the TRO should have unpaused it and it didn't. I sent an email to State Department leadership that night saying, hey, heads up, this should do this. We're waiting word from you. For some reason, they didn't respond to me. I don't know why. But that's Lisa Kenna, the executive secretary. That's Mike Needham, the chief of staff and counsel. That's Dan Holler, the deputy chief of staff. I emailed all of them, and I guess maybe my stuff's going to spam. I don't know. But it's so what should happen is that now the IRAP lawsuit that should be heard in the next week or two, and once that's heard, that's specific to refugees and foreign aid. So whatever gets decided there should impact directly this work, and I think it will be hard for the administration to ignore that lawsuit, any orders that come from that lawsuit. So I hope there's relief coming soon. It's really hard to see the desperation in people's eyes, but you know what we're not going to shy away from? We're not going to shy away from answering the questions that we have answers to and saying we don't know when we don't know, because it's not Afghans' fault that our country is playing fuck games with their lives. That's a Navy term, by the way.
That's why Navy's number one.
That's right, why Navy's number one. God damn it.
Yeah.
No, look, we're never going to shy away from a hard conversation. We're never going to shy away from sharing with you what we know. And look, I'm a white guy from California. Like, I should be pretty safe. We don't know what they're going to do. But, whatever happens to me, happens to me. And I think if there's more of us out there, then we're probably all a lot safer. So, come join me, folks. The water's warm.
All right. I have a couple more that I think are unanswerable. This is pertaining to the IRAP case too. Will this help those whose flight tickets to the U.S. were canceled due to the executive order?
Yes, it should.
Right, if it should.
But listen, jobs are being lost. It's going to take time to stand up that infrastructure again. And I think, it kills me to ask for more patience. But, this is going to be a grind. We're going to have to fight for every inch of success that we get. We're going to have to fight for every inch of success that we get. So I am confident. IRAP is the expert on SIV. They're the expert on refugees. I defer to IRAP on anything. Those people are the smartest people I know on these issues. Mm-hmm. And they care about refugees. They're not trying to make a buck. They're not trying to be famous. They like to operate behind the scenes, doing the right thing for vulnerable people. And that's something I can get behind. So, look, the best people who could be bringing this suit have brought this suit.
Yeah. Yep, I've asked IRAP to come on here and talk, but I think IRAP likes to be behind the scenes, and I understand that completely. They do their best work, behind the scenes and then in the courtroom. So I just keep saying, do your thing, because every time there's something horrid, IRAP is there trying to make it better. When really will the process
quality
start?
Organization that cares about the right things. Sorry.
Absolutely.
I fucking love IRAP.
Yeah, me too. No, me too. 100%. When will the process start? Because we, the case holders in Pakistan, are at risk of deportation.
God, I wish I could give you a good answer on that. The process will start as soon as President Trump, Secretary Noem, and Secretary Rubio decide that Afghans are able to come here. That's the only way that it happens, right? They've got to make the decision. They've got to make the right decision for our history. They've got to make the right decision for our national honor. And there's no backdoor secret way in. There's no hey, I get, and if you're sending me messages on Twitter or on Instagram or on Facebook or an email or LinkedIn, I see them all. I can't respond to them all because I've got to communicate with everybody. But I want you to know that I read your messages. I'm taking in what you're telling me. I'm understanding what you're saying, and you help us understand what it's like on the ground, and what you're doing by sharing that with me is invaluable. So thank you. And just because I'm not responding directly to you doesn't mean that I'm not seeing it, and we're trying to push out information that is applicable to everybody. Individual cases, there's no secret handshake, there's no silver bullet, there's no whatever the Afghan idiom is for a knowing a guy. That's just not a thing.
Yeah. The last one I've got, with 126 organizations pushing for the full resumption of U.S. resettlement and legal challenges affecting immigration policies, what concrete steps should Congress take to expedite U.S. RAP P1 and P2 processing for Afghan allies facing urgent risks?
Well, that's a fucking great question. So Congress could be legislating. They could be writing letters to hold the president accountable. We need to see Republicans in Congress making your public voice heard. Republicans in Congress, make your public voice heard. If you were on the news talking about what a disgrace Joe Biden was through all of this, have the balls to stand up and say, hey, this could be done better. We're all watching, man. All your veteran buddies are watching. Every one of us. Don't give me the opportunity to come up and call your honor into question. Because I will. You're a member of Congress. You took an oath to this nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You took oaths in the military to stand with these folks. Where the fuck you at, man? Look, and if the answer is you're doing stuff behind the scenes, let us know. We're not going to beat you up if you're doing stuff behind the scenes. If you're making progress, we're on the same team here. It's not. I'm not going to go and out you You can ask some of your buddies that have been talking to me every day. I'm not saying shit about those guys. But if you've done roundtables or if you've been real noisy about what a disgrace it was that Joe Biden left Afghans behind, and you're just sitting real quiet, not sending letters, not making your voices heard, and you're a member of Congress, you're somebody who's paid to govern, well, I have questions for you, friend. And you got about a week before I start making it real clear. Don't be a fucking baby.
What did I tell you about threatening people on podcasts?
There are so many. That's the thing, though. I mean, how many of us? I can go back and back and back in the Wayback Machine and find all the people who were outraged and start writing op-eds and calling people out. That's easy. And it's fun, but also,
and we've got receipts, baby.
Right. Exactly. It's not acceptable at this point. And if you're doing it quietly, you need to understand that has an impact too, right? Like, why could you be so loud about it before, but you can't be now? Like, this has just, I mean, my entire life as someone who reports on Afghanistan has gone and spun around a blender in the last 2 months. So I get it. Something has changed. There's been some memo put out in the sphere that, like, this is not the thing to talk about anymore. We're just going to bury it and pretend like it doesn't exist. But heads up.
Yeah.
It still exists.
And look, veterans are pissed. And if you're not hearing from your conservative-leaning veterans that were pissed before, well, actually, I want to address something. There were a bunch of people that were starting rumors that I was only doing Afghan evac because I wanted to run for Congress. Somebody actually brought this up on, like, a conservative brought this up on a phone call with me the other day, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like,
you'd never make it in public office, my friend.
Yeah, first of all, that sounds terrible. I don't want to run for Congress at all. If somebody's told you that I do this to run for Congress, they're fucking insane. There's a lot of other ways that you can set yourself up to run for Congress. I have taught people how to run for office for a decade. Like, I'm not trying to run for Congress. I know too much. It seems terrible. Don't do it. If you're thinking about it, don't do it. It's terrible. I do this because it's the right thing to do, and my track record speaks for itself. So if you're out there saying that, if you're out there being real quiet right now, and you had some stuff to say about me, call me up. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about ways that we can let you land softly in your party, or let you land softly, and you can still make sure that your honor's intact. You can still make sure that you can sleep at night. You can still make sure that your fellow veterans don't say you're full of shit. Because we know, we're watching. And I'm upset about this, right? Like, the amount of phone calls that I had to field, like, oh, well, I've heard that you're only doing this because you want to run for Congress, or I've heard that you're only doing this because of X, Y, or Z. Like, man, and I never addressed it publicly because it doesn't fucking matter. Who cares? Like, no, I'm not doing that. But now, to know that the people that were spreading those rumors are sitting so quietly, or maybe you're not, but we want to know about it. We want to help. And I don't want to ascribe intent, but if it is true that you are sitting quietly because your guy's in office and you don't want to talk about it, well, then I question your integrity, I question your honor, and I question your intent in the early days. Were you just taking a shot? Or do you actually care about these folks? Show us. Action speaks louder than words. Show us what you mean. Get out there. We can find a way for you to feel good about this and to do it in a safe manner. I'm here to help. There's so many people that are here to help. We want everybody to be successful, and we can only do that together.
Well, I feel like this has been a very productive and anger-provoking episode of
uplifting.
Let's fight.
Of facts and
a great
frustration.
Formal launch for Shawn VanDiver's run for Congress.
Right? Surprise double secret. Oh my God.
That should be the
I'm just
teaser.
Gonna sit here and
Just
hug
around
my
the corner,
knees
guys. We're just about to announce.
Oh my God. I think the main thing here is hope and and advocacy, right? Like, let the hope keep you doing the advocacy, or the anger, if that's what you got. Anger is a great clean burning fuel. I'll say it till the day I die. The best fuel I've ever found in my life is anger. So whatever it takes for you to stand up and talk to the people in your town, talk to the people who represent you, talk to anyone you know who is in a position of power who could impact the choices being made right now, maybe in the room where it happens, where we are not.
But somebody listening to this is in the room where it's happening, right? Somebody in this is hearing what's actually happening. I'm hearing from folks that I know listen to this podcast who are telling me that they're people who are Republicans or work with Republicans and who feel very lost right now, who feel betrayed, right? And I want you to know, I felt really betrayed by the Biden administration. I know what you're feeling right now. It sucks, and it's hard, and you feel like you have to keep it quiet. You don't. You can do it the right way. And I'm like, look, we're here to help. We want everybody who cares about this to be involved. Call me. You know how to get a hold of me. Call me. Write me. Let's talk about how we can best get this thing off the ground and make the change that we need to see, which is ensuring that enduring welcome not only persists, but gets better.
Yeah, and if anybody has a story to tell and they don't know how to tell it, please feel free to ask me. You know, even if the only place I can put it out is Substack, that's better than nowhere. Or if you want to come on the podcast and share a story, whether you're a volunteer, a veteran, an Afghan, doesn't matter who you are. Like, I'm happy to, and if you feel like you can't fill up half an hour or an hour, we can do a roundtable and get a bunch of people together and start talking about the impact of this, because I really do feel like, if nothing else, it's therapeutic, and you know that you said your piece and that you've done everything you can. And, you know, it's also a memoir of sorts of everything
Right.
that has been going on for the last 3.5 years. Because even if this ends, like we said before, there will be efforts to continue things. It's not going to die. And that history still exists and is valid. And we need to make sure it is kept and preserved. Even if the powers that be want to pretend like it's nothing. It's not nothing. Well, everybody, final words. Kate, you first.
This was sucky, but I hope
Shit.
I hope. Well, it's so hard to like only feel like you have tough news for people.
Yeah.
And I think that you guys do a wonderful job at trying to tell people that like the fact that we're still sharing it shows that we are in the fight. And so please take that away from this. Like, if you are an Afghan, there is still an entire community of people who is just fighting for you, whether it is in the shadows or in the media. Like, we want you to know that you are our neighbors and we want you here. And to the volunteers who are placing a lot of faith in, you know, Shawn and I and Beth to be able to keep you updated, thank you for that. And this next part is hard. It will be as hard as it has been over the last 3.5 years. So just be slow and intentional with what you do. And if you need anything, please remember that you can reach out to any of us.
Shawn?
Sure. So, you know, it's hard to believe that less than a month ago, we had 5,000 Afghans leaving the month. We had 6 flights a week to several safe third countries that were allowing us to process our wartime allies so they could come have their shot at the American dream. Less than 3 weeks ago, everything sort of came crashing down with the foreign aid pause and the U.S. rep pause. And it seems like the news just keeps getting worse and worse, right? We had to establish an underground railroad for diapers, which seems insane. For diapers, tampons, pads, things that are just items that folks need to get through life. I want to say thank you so much to the government employees. So from where I've been able to sit through this entire time, I've had the privilege of seeing that this is a shared experience between volunteers Afghans and the government workers who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, right? They don't have the privilege that we do to get out there and be like, fuck you, this needs to happen. They have to grind it out. And those folks are not doing so well. I talk to a lot of you every day, I know. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who flexed, who stood up to make sure that we were able to establish that Diaper Underground Railroad, to establish all of the things that we're doing. The public-private partnership still thrives to this day. And it's hard to believe that it was less than a month ago when, like, I thought that was going to be an easy week, right? I thought that it would take a while before we started hearing about Afghan things. And, I mean, we did try to send a letter that said, hey, be so careful so you don't fuck this up. They did not read our letters. I'm beginning to think they don't read the things they send them.
That's weird.
But my final words are, I'll go back to we've been here before, right? We've had to get the attention. We've had to create forcing mechanisms for government to listen to us. And remember, they are in the weakest position here. We are unburdened. We can do whatever the fuck we want. They are supposed to be burdened by law. And once they figure out where the bathrooms are, they will be burdened by law. And we can bring all sorts of heat. We can bring all sorts of difficulty. And we don't have to do things the way that they've always been done. That's why Afghan evac was successful, because we did things differently than traditional organizations. So if you're listening to this, you've made it through an hour and a half or 2 hours of this, and you're still hanging on, you're not crashed out, I need you to know that the fight is worth it. We see you. We appreciate you. Every single person in this matters. Every single person in this matters. And we're grateful for you. And we're going to have answers very soon, right? So keep putting one foot in front of the other. Call us if you need something. And let's keep fucking going, man.
Damn straight. Okay, no more emergency episodes. I'm telling that to the universe, okay? No more of this. This is it.
It's personal.
This is the one. From now on, everything's going to be roses and sunshine. That's what I'm putting it. I'm manifesting. Isn't that what it is?
Yes.
Manifesting.
Yes. That's what the youths do.
That's what they do. I'm old and curmudgeonly, and I don't manifest. Thank you guys for listening. We're clearly losing touch with what's going on, but we'll keep it up. Tasha Kaur, and can't wait to see you again with, like I said, better news next time.